Have you ever heard of the Pomodoro technique? Or ever procrastinated on a big task and don't know what to do to get started? Or do you feel like your day flew by and you didn't get anything on your task list done? I'm going to talk about these issues and tell you about a productivity hack I'm using that cost me 19 bucks that I'm pretty happy with, coming right up. Okay, so let's start with the word Pomodoro. It literally means apple of gold in Italian, which is a reference to the color of a tomato before it's fully ripe. But for most of us, we know the word as tomato sauce, or as some of our older Italian friends would say, gravy. How did a reference to a vegetable make its way into the world of productivity? Well, it's sort of a funny story. A guy by the name of Francisco Cirillo was a university student, was feeling distracted in his studies. So he began using a timer to set aside dedicated time blocks for his work. And that timer was in the shape of a tomato, so the Pomodoro method or technique was born. You can read about the Pomodoro technique in several books and online resources on productivity. But the basic essence of it is that when you have a set amount of time to accomplish a task, it creates urgency. That urgency gets you to focus on just that task. So rather than being distracted, you know you've got a set amount of time to get that work done. And this is where this hack works for me. When I set this timer for 25 minutes, I know that for the next 25 minutes, I'm going to work on one single thing. It may be to completion, or it may be just one part or step of many to get a task done. It may sound stupid, but for some reason, this timer keeps me focused and on track for what I call a sprint. I run this sprint for 25 minutes and then rest for 5 minutes. If I'm doing these sprints consecutively for a couple of hours, I'll take a longer break, like 15 or 30 minutes after several of them before I get back at it. Maybe even plan my lunch around that break. Hey, and as a side note, can I ask you to do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button? Thanks. Look, no day is ever perfectly structured, and I'm not suggesting that you can chunk an entire day into half-hour blocks. That's not the way a workday goes. But if you can take a portion of your day and chunk it into those half-hour blocks, I think you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish. Now, I've talked about the 25 minutes of work time, but I also want to give some attention to the breaks. The break is almost as important as the sprint because it helps prevent being burned out. If you're like me and get lost into a project and work for 90 minutes or to 2 hours or more at a clip, you know that feeling of being fried when you finally lift your head up from the task you're focused on. By incorporating breaks, just 5 minutes at a time, into your workflow, it helps reduce that burnout. What I'm finding in the last 2 weeks since making the purchase of this timer is that it actually does get me to buckle down and do the one thing I set out to do. Yes, I know it sounds strange, but this is an effective method of sticking to the task at hand and focusing exclusively on it. And for multitaskers like me, you know how difficult it can be to do just one thing at a time. You can find this timer and many others on Amazon. I use the search term productivity timer, and there's a bunch of different shapes and sizes and functions. I just wanted to keep it simple, and I took Amazon's choice for 19 bucks. I hope you found this hack interesting and effective for you and your workload. I'd love to hear your comments about it as well below. Thanks.